I'm not going to start with any easy questions.
What would you do if you couldn't fail?
I was vulnerable in the sense of I was just who I was.
The cold exposure conditions the inside of our body to literally adapt.
Whatever happens in the gut happens in the brain, and whatever happens in the brain happens in the gut.
Finding the grace and the humor.
Anti-aging is associated with at least an hour of deep sleep nightly.
Absolutely had mentors, absolutely 100% had coaches.
90+% of the decisions that we make today actually stem from fear.
Allow ourselves to have imperfection.
Nothing starts without a plan, nothing ever goes to plan.
Chaga is actually the most antioxidant-rich food on the planet.
If we can bring a practice into our lives that helps us be more vulnerable. I'm so thrilled that this content is getting out there, that you guys are promoting bold and vulnerable message and aspirations for people, because I hope that we can all really live that every day.
Hey, this is Jessica.
And Svetlana, and you're listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast,
where we aim to inspire others to live authentically through sharing the bold and vulnerable stories of peak performers across a variety of industries. Hey guys, it's Jessica here, and you know I love my coffee. We have recently partnered with a company called La Repubblica Coffee. They are completely fair trade, they are non-GMO and all vegan, which you guys know I'm vegan, so I'm totally a fan. But the cool thing is that this is a mushroom coffee company. You know, sometimes people feel stuck in their coffee routine. They feel like they can't live with it, they can't live without it. Maybe coffee makes them feel overwhelmed. This coffee completely makes you feel so zen. It gives you a peace of mind and well-being and a clean energy jolt. You don't have any jitters that you get with coffee because the cordyceps really help to regulate the intake of caffeine from the coffee. It's a rich source of vitamin D, E, and many other things that help your immune function and optimal health. It's a perfect way to incorporate high beneficial superfoods into your morning routine. I love to start my morning with just a smooth cup.
This morning, I was so freaking excited because I ordered my bulk order. I'm telling you, George and I were literally waiting by the door yesterday. I'm not joking. And finally they came at like 7 and we were so excited, and George and I were like, should we drink this now?
Yeah, listeners, you guys are going to be so excited because you get 15% off all of your orders by using the code vulnerable, all caps 15. So vulnerable 15, all caps.
We only partner with companies that we believe in here at Bold and Vulnerable because we really value honesty and just being truthful to our audience. Being a working mom and entrepreneur, you really want to have all the hacks possible at your fingertips. So I'm so freaking excited to be partnering with this company.
Everyone that I've talked to who's tried it has been raving about how delicious it is. And we drink it during our podcast episodes, and just to give us a jolt of energy. It has 7 superfood mushrooms. So not only do you get the benefits and energy of your cordyceps, but you also get the healthy benefits of lion's mane. It gives you so much focus and immunity support. You also get this really nutrient-rich product that elevates your focus and also elevates your gut. So it's almost like using a smart blend of quality chaga, reishi, shiitake, turkey tail, and your immune system just gets this daily boost of energy. And it also helps to alkalize the effects of coffee's natural acidities.
Yeah, definitely. And what I really love about it is that they have a gold standard for their manufacturing, which I think is really important, which tells us that they have high standards, obviously, as do we here at Bold and Vulnerable. The benefits that you're receiving in 1 cup of coffee are just outstanding.
It's kind of like an anti-inflammatory for your body, which is absolutely amazing. And not only that, it has a wonderful taste. So I think that's everything that people are looking for. Even people that don't drink coffee, I think will probably enjoy the taste of La Repubblica coffee.
We have a discount code for you. It is all caps vulnerable 15.
Head over to larepublicasuperfoods.com and type in vulnerable 15. When you check out, you will receive a 15% discount on all of La Repubblica's mushroom coffee.
Get yourself an amazing adaptogenic cup of coffee.
Hey guys, due to COVID-19, we have not been able to be in our normal recording studios for some of our podcast episodes. So you may hear some background noise in this episode, but we wanted to release it and air it because the content is so wonderful, and we hope you guys can enjoy with maybe a little bit of background noise. Thank you so much for understanding. Hey everybody, today we are speaking with Chris Wilson, and I'm so excited to talk to Chris because Chris and I actually, small world, went to high school together. I was a freshman, I believe, when Chris was a senior in high school. We both grew up on Cape Cod, so just kind of a fun fact about us, but Chris has extensive experience as an elite athlete, a sales executive, a life and business coach, and after high school, Chris raced international triathlons and attended Norwich University Military Academy. And after 1 year, he left college to chase his dream of racing bicycles in Europe. At the age of 22, he broke both arms in a cycling accident, which launched him out of cycling and into the workforce without a college degree. He started his sales career by landing an exclusive job at Yahoo's largest advertising partner, Chiquita. He excelled in sales and over the next 7 years went on to work with companies like HubSpot, cloud provider, Nanigans and Localytics. He realized he wanted something different. Chris quit sales and along with Stephen Warley started the modern business podcast, Unstuckable. He became the learner in residence at the Uncollege guided gap year program where he created Designing Your Year. This journey led him to Mike, and he found his calling as a men's coach. Chris lives in San Francisco with his fiance Anna and loves helping men live their life from the inside out like he has. Today we're going to talk to Chris about emotional awareness, and we're so excited to discuss this topic and explore more about what emotional awareness is, what it means to us, what is an emotion, what happens when we realize there are no good or bad emotions, how sensations, emotions, and feelings become thoughts, attitudes, judgments, and stories, and how discovering this can open the door to new ways of experiencing our life consciously. This is where Chris comes in. So welcome, Chris, to the show. We are so excited to chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. So my name's Chris Wilson. I'm co-founder of the Unshakable Man, and the way I like to say it is I help men build unshakable lives through coaching.
Simple and easy. I love it.
Yeah.
I think too, you know, a lot of what you do for men is what Svetlana and I work on as well. Not only with women, but men and women. And I know you're very focused and you guys are very clear about what you do. So I wanted to kind of explore what you work on with men in terms of emotional awareness and what that means. And maybe you can dive into that and tell us kind of how you create these vulnerabilities where men can really dive into their emotional fitness and their emotional awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like one of the most interesting things about this subject for me is just noticing and observing what emotional awareness is, right? Like, have you guys ever given thought to really explaining what emotional awareness is?
As coaches, both of us feel that way.
I feel like it's something that I'm always constantly questioning as I'm responding or am I responding or reacting, and where did that come from?
Yeah, I think for me and in my journey, something that really unlocked this for me was when someone presented it to me as that emotional awareness and emotional intelligence are different things. Emotional awareness is my awareness of my experience of my life, right? And so emotional awareness is present moment, right? And emotional intelligence is my understanding of my emotional awareness and then used on myself and others to understand other people's experience. But my emotional awareness is whatever I am currently experiencing, right? So a great example of this in the moment right now is like, right as we jumped in here, we were having a conversation and we were kind of like going back and forth. And here Svetlana and I are like talking about life and like about the realities of things that are going on in our world, and I'm listening to what she's saying, and then my mind is picking that up, and then I'm reframing that and thinking about how that relates to my life, and I'm maybe listening or hearing half of what she's saying or a little bit, but I'm already kind of thinking about what it is I want to say back to her, right? And then right as we pressed record, I noticed my heart rate changed, right? And my awareness, I was waiting for something to come, and my whole mind came into this present moment of here and now, right? That recording effect that I've come to love so much, right? And so emotional awareness is my experience of my life. And there's like 7 components of that, of emotional awareness that we could break down if we wanted, but where it really starts, there's the beginning and the end of those components as emotional vocabulary and a present state of a calm mind, right? And I think that it's so cool when people kind of pick this up, and I can usually see like a shift in someone's understanding of it when they're like, wait, what is it, right? Like, cause like they're like, that's one of my favorite moments with guys, men and women, right? Cause this is human work. We all have an emotional spectrum, right? And if we have an acceptable emotional spectrum, well then those are the emotions that we deem to be acceptable to have, right? And we pick that up, our culturalization and growing up and our relationships that we're in, and we are not even aware that this emotional spectrum is what it is until we expand it, right? And so one thing I always like to say is like, well then my experience of my life is stunted, right? But then if my emotional vocabulary is broadened, well then my experience of my life is broadened.
Wow. I think there's that, there's the psychophysiological role of both, especially like you mentioned when we hit the record button. But I think that's really, a parallel to today when people are going through crisis management and going through high stress levels that can cause not only a spike in your hormone responses, which is different in men and women, and then also it can cause, cognitive impairments, so that you're kind of in this fight or flight, or you go into your parasympathetic nervous system. And I know that you focus a ton on that, especially with men and getting vulnerable and what are the stories that I've told myself behind it. Yeah. So we love the work that you're doing. Can you kind of tell us how those attitudes or judgments or thoughts, stories, whatever you want to call them, how discovering these can actually open up new doors for experiencing life, and how you work through the Unshakable Man to help other men create these new patterns of thought and new associations?
Yeah, I think you might be referring to one of my doodles, the emotions, feelings, thoughts, attitudes, moods, judgments, and stories, how sensations happen and then an emotion. So like a sensation, an emotion, a feeling for the purpose of our work are different things. A sensation is just maybe it's something that's occurring, right, in our reality, but we might not be consciously aware of it because we're in fight or flight, right? And then an emotion is a physical reaction that's happening in the body that I am consciously aware of, that is telling me that something important is happening to my well-being. And one of my favorite things about the definition of emotion is that have you guys ever heard of the Atlas of Emotions by Dr. Eve Ekman at Stanford University? She and her father did a study. He's Dr. Paul Ekman with the Dalai Lama for the past 10 years. And it was just a study with 250 emotions researchers around the world. And it was just to find out, what do they agree on, right? Like all they wanted to do was find out across all these emotions researchers, what do we agree on about emotions? And they agreed on so very little, like very little. And one of the things they couldn't even agree on was, what is the definition of an emotion? Like, where does it start? Where does it come from? Is it there if we're not conscious of it? And so her definition that we've kind of picked up for the purpose of our work is this one where you need to be consciously aware of an emotion in order for that emotion to be present. And so a sensation is the thing that's happening if we're not relaxed, open, and connected, right? And a great example of this in just layman's terms is like how often have we been rushing on our way to work? We're taking the same path we take every single day. I'm literally thinking of just before this, I was walking down the street between meetings, and I'm sitting there, and I was on a phone call, and there was a gentleman to my right, and somebody honked a horn, and I was totally relaxed in the moment. I was relaxed. I was feeling pretty relaxed. I was actually listening to Headspace, and I jumped. I jumped up in the air, and the guy to my right didn't even notice it. Right? He didn't notice it at all, and he was like in his own zone completely. And so, if we aren't, one of the coolest things for me that's really like in my mind has kind of expanded this idea of what emotional awareness is this idea that if I'm not relaxed, open, and connected to my experience of my life, there is a ton of stuff going on that I'm not even noticing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm very surprised in San Francisco that somebody wouldn't be startled by that. But we're in our own worlds. People's heads are in their phones, and I think
he was looking at his phone actually.
Yeah, and I think it's really getting, like you use the word connected, and I think it's really getting back to the basics of connectivity, but also the inner work that you do with connecting men to themselves and the relationship that they have with themselves and to a bigger purpose that they have in life, I think is really, really kind of the core and the essence of how we can really get back to that grounding.
I can just show you guys, I mean, we can just do one right now if you want to drop in for a second. I can do one of our relax, open, connect exercises.
I would love that. Let's go. Let's go for it.
Awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. So a lot's going on in this. So there's 8 components to emotional awareness. It's emotional embodiment, emotional granularity, emotional differentiation, emotional vocabulary, emotional balance, emotional agility, emotional contagion, and a present state of a calm mind. Okay, so embodiment is that feeling, right? The ability to physically feel an emotion on or in the body. Right? Emotional granularity is the ability to like get down precisely to like noticing the difference between one emotion over another, which is very similar to emotional differentiation. Like, am I feeling anger or frustration or overwhelm, right? And then notice how I put those labels on it. Emotional vocabulary is, well, my human language, right? Like whatever language terms, and that's why we separate out sensations, emotions, and feelings from each other, is because if I am a man who has been raised and cultured to only have to just call any feeling I'm having stress, well then when I feel tightness in my chest, I might just be saying I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling stressed. And we call those weasel words because what they do is they remove our ability to get emotionally granular, right? And to differentiate between what is it I'm actually feeling. Right. And so we relax, guys, we slow ourselves down, we relax, open, and connect to our current emotional experience. We usually do this in groups of like 8 to 10 men. And I do this with men and women. I just like tend to focus on men because that's where the huge need, that's where I'm getting pulled in the world, is to help men unlock this. But me and my fiance, we do this too. And I would love the ability to do this more regularly with men and women. But I just wanted to like run you guys through those 8 things just so that you're aware of them, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say I'm Chris and I'm checking in. And each time I do this, I'm taking a breath in my nose and then out my mouth. And all I ask is that after I'm done is you guys acknowledge me and just say like, I heard you or thank you, okay?
Got it.
All right, cool. So I'm going to say I'm Chris and I'm checking in, and I'm just going to, because for the purposes of an audio lesson, I'm just going to tell you guys what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do it. So I'm going to say I'm Chris and I'm checking in, and I'm going to notice 3 items in the room, and I'm going to describe them in a dull, descriptive way. And the reason why I'm describing them in a dull, descriptive way is because my terms, the way I describe something with my language creates my relationship with it. And what we're trying to create is a detached, connected relationship with my physical surroundings, similar to having a detached, connected relationship with my physical body. right? And the feelings and the emotions that are coming up in my body. And so we start with the room around us. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go from the room around us, noticing 3 things in the room around me. And then I'm going to notice 3 ways I feel physically on or in my body or my mind. And then I'm going to attempt to label how I'm feeling emotionally on or in my body. And I always like to say that to just be forgiving and like easygoing with this, right? Because usually different emotions come up at different times and they'll come up in combinations. And like as we do this, something I often notice is guys will, people who do this they'll say how they're feeling physically using an emotion. And then when they get to their emotion, they'll talk about how they're feeling physically. And every time you do this is another opportunity to get more precise and to learn how to differentiate between all of these things. Okay. And lastly, when I give you an opportunity to do it, and if you guys want, I'll give you an opportunity. I'm listening for amplifiers and suppressors. So with our language, we'll amplify and suppress what we're checking in on. And that amplification and that suppression, what it does is we will use amplification and suppression to kind of detach or hide from a current experience that we're having. So that might be saying, I'm kind of scared, right? Versus just saying, I'm scared, right? And like, well, as I said that, I noticed it was more difficult for me to say, I'm scared, than it was to say, I'm kind of scared. And so if I hear you say, I'm kind of, or I'm a little, I'll repeat the word. And the reason I'm repeating the word that you said before is to give you an opportunity to say whatever you said after it without that word. And then you feel the difference. And you get a choice to say in your mind with your internal self, your internal dialogue, well, do I really want to attach myself to that feeling, or am I going to let that go? Right? And all of this is creating otherness and that detached, connected state. All right, so here you go. All right, I'm going to go. I'm Chris, and I'm checking in. I notice a black JBL speaker to my left. I notice a piece of paper with a coffee stain to my right. And I notice a set of keys hanging off the desk, also to my right. Physically, on my body, I notice a wetness around the left corner of my lips, dryness around my nostrils as I breathe in, and my palms are clammy. Emotionally, I feel excited, curious, nervous, joyful. I'm Chris, and I'm checking in.
Thanks for checking in, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you guys want to give it a try, it'd be awesome to do it with you. So first of all, let's just do this playfully, right? And be compassionate with ourselves, because it's your first time ever doing this. We're doing it like recording, right? So I'm Svetlana, and I'm checking in, and then just go ahead and just notice 3 things in the room around you physically, then 3 ways you feel in your body, and attempt to label how you feel emotionally. And then just say, I'm Svetlana, and I'm checking in.
I'm Svetlana, and I'm checking in. I notice a black canteen water bottle to my left. I notice my daughter's rattle toy right in front of me, and my phone to my right. And I notice my palms feel a little sweaty.
A little?
They feel sweaty. I notice my lips are dry. I notice my back is stiff. Emotionally, I feel anxious, energized, sad. I'm Svetlana and I'm checking in.
Welcome. Good to have you here. I noticed, did you notice anything in your body, like anything more noticeable as you did that?
I think as soon as I started, that's when I started to feel my palms start to sweat a little more.
Yeah. Awesome.
And just more connected. I felt this sense of grounding come over me.
Yeah.
Where I need to come back to myself and check in with where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt, when you said sad, I felt myself want to be like, where do you feel that sadness in your body?
In my back. That's why I feel the stiffness.
And then like a question I might ask them in the group, and we don't have to go down here because this is like in a podcast, but like, what do you want to say to that sadness?
That it's okay to feel hurt and upset.
Yeah. Right. And like, so there are no good or bad emotions. There's only constructive or destructive reactions to emotions. And our relationship with a past emotional experience creates our relationship with it. Right. And so in a container with a group of humans, when all of us check in like that, we are all coming with a certain level of acceptable and unacceptable emotional experiences. Right. And one of my favorite opportunities to really drop in, what I call this is dropping in, is to drop in with a group and then have somebody get frustrated, right? Or I'll call it polling or mirroring, when a man or a woman will check in and say, they'll go around, they'll check in again, and then they'll give like a story behind or a reason behind why they're feeling what they're feeling. And their physical body or physical reaction won't match up with what they're saying. Maybe they're talking about something that's making them very angry, right? And yet their body, they're smiling and they are leaning back and they seem to be almost timid or like not, it just doesn't match, right? Well, when they do that, I won't tell them what they're feeling, but I'll say, when you said that, I felt distrusting. I felt sheepish, right? And what happens is they get to see how they get to tap into like, oh, this other person isn't picking up what it is that I'm saying. My words don't match my physical reaction. And one of the best things is when they get frustrated with this, they get angry, like, no, I am angry, right? And then they actually get angry. And then what we do is we say, what are you feeling right now? Well, I'm feeling angry. Awesome. Where do you feel that on your body? I feel it around my eyes, backs of my ears. I'm really angry, right? And it's like, awesome, breathe into that. And then all of a sudden, they get into it and they breathe into it. And when they breathe into it and then you notice them calm down a little bit and you say, what are you feeling now? I'm feeling calm. And then they smile and you say, what are you feeling now? I'm feeling joy, right? And then the whole group settles, right? And all of a sudden we all realize we were unconsciously holding this person's anger back. Right? Like we wanted them to be okay, but they're not okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
100%.
Yeah. And so what I call this is emotional reps, right? And so when we drop in with a group of men, like there are no good or bad emotions, right? Like just, if you're in rage, my ability to hold that rage in a safe place And to hold that container with another group of men is a freaking healing journey. Like, this man might need 4 other people around him to hold him back, to allow this emotion to release and to move that energy. And then what we find behind it is we find that there's actually sadness, right? Or guilt or shame, actually shame that needs to be flipped into guilt so it can be processed and moved, right? And then crying and just whatever that is coming up for this man. Everybody gets to share how they're feeling again at that next layer. And when we walk away from this container and we go into our life, well, now we stand in the kitchen after work with our partner, and our partner is talking about something that frustrates them. And we realize that, oh my gosh, my partner, I'm washing dishes and my partner is chopping like cucumbers, and she's talking about something that made her angry. And I notice my chest tighten and my immediate body reaction to step in and make her feel better. But instead, because I've had these emotional reps, I take a breath and I go, and now I am able to hold space for this human being. I notice myself unconsciously saying to my partner that it's not okay to be unhappy. Right? And that's what we do.
Yeah, what a beautiful exercise. I really enjoyed just kind of taking that in as a third party, and I know we don't have a ton of time, or we'd dive into all of us, but what a beautiful way to just kind of, like you said, drop in. And we're such big fans of breath work and meditation, and I think that it's so huge. Can you tell us about maybe a vulnerable breakthrough that you've had with a client, a male client that's really gone through something really deep and pushed through?
Yeah, I'm, I think one of the earliest that's like something that's attached to my own story, to speak from myself, and is just recently. So I'm in the second year in a row of being together with a group of men for a full year, right? So we started a men's group 2.5 years ago that went for a full year, and then felt like ready to start another one. And when I was a part of starting the first men's group, I had pain and sadness about just my relationship with my mother, my relationship with my little brother, feeling like I left him behind, stuff that was just right on the surface, like stuff that was just underneath the surface of my my research, right? Like I could relax, open, and connect, and find deeply emotional places inside of me that block me from this more soft pool of peace below that like I got to work on. And what was surprising to me was discovering that like, well, dropping in and really being vulnerable in a group of men, that, and then being held by that group, that was leadership. That from repeatedly going to these places inside that I didn't show other men or anyone really, I crafted this bond with these guys that was like incredibly healing and empowering, to be like, wow, I can go back to these places inside that I didn't even really know were there, and they're just underneath the surface, and just really break down and expand what was acceptable for me to show, right? And what was surprising was when I got up the excitement to be like, hey, like, well, actually what happened is another men's group ended, and lost the team, the group disbanded, and people were moving and everything. And somebody at Anchor Meditation called me and said, hey, can you start this men's group? Can you come in and help bring this back together? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll go do it. And right before going, I realized that I was afraid of starting this group and not having those same depths of sadness and places inside that needed healing because of how far I had perceived myself to come, right? Like, it's like I had healed this stuff, right? And like, it made me, I'm sitting there outside of the meditation studio the hour before, sitting there having this experience being like, wow, I am feeling afraid to do this group because I don't feel like I have anything to bring up that is like, and then at the same time feeling joy at the fact that healing is a thing. Like I actually have healed some stuff inside of me, right? And how baffling it was to be like afraid to go into a group of men, to not have something to be viscerally traumatic, that like I had gone back to these places inside and accepted certain things, and that was even possible, right? And then when it came, but yet I was anxious, and I came into the group and I sit in the group on the very first night, and I just checked in on that. And in that moment, following the same stuff that I had been doing with myself for 52 weeks in a row with another group of men, relaxing, opening, connecting, and expressing that fear, I realized that I had been making this work about needing a problem to solve. Right? Like I had come into this work because there was parts of me that were in pain, and I had healed that pain, and that in this opportunity, expressing joy is just as important as expressing love and healing and forgiveness to the places inside that hurt. Expressing joy is an emotion too, right? And it was like this, like, holy cow, I have been making this stuff about having a problem. And like, I get to come in here and celebrate and like express joy. And even now, like right in this moment, like I'm like tearing up, right? Like, it's like, holy crap. Like, it's all of it. Emotional awareness is the whole spectrum.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like this is honestly one of the deepest conversations we've had on our podcast.
Oh, that's so nice.
And
that makes me so happy.
it's really raw as well, where I feel, honestly, I feel my own healing and wounds coming up as well, just throughout this talk, and by listening to you, just by doing the exercise too, which I feel will be so helpful for our listeners. So thank you.
Yeah.
Hey listeners, quick interruption to your podcast. For those of you that can't see Svetlana and I right now, we both have coffee mugs in our hand, and we are always sipping on our La Repubblica coffee. And you guys can actually enjoy the benefits and the adaptogens and all the beautiful qualities of this coffee as well, because they are actually our partners and our sponsors.
Well, you know, I'm obviously sipping on my La Repubblica coffee right now. I can't do a podcast interview without it. Nothing really works the way that this stuff works. There really is something in this coffee, and I mean, it's the mushrooms, it's the reishi that gives you sort of like that zen feel.
I know it's wintertime right now, and if you guys maybe are feeling a little stuffy or feel a little tingle in your throat, this is the perfect elixir that can not only fight a common cold, but it helps your skin glow, your hair grow thicker, and reduces inflammation in your body. Chaga is amazing. It also contains cordyceps for better performance and increased energy, but not the crash that coffee might give you from a caffeine standpoint.
Combating mom brain and fatigue right now, it's really helping me maintain focus and maintain that sustainability that I need to get on throughout my day, especially with a newborn and running multiple businesses.
You guys are going to love this coffee. Not only does it have the 7 adaptogenic mushroom extracts, but it will certainly transform your morning coffee ritual. And it's really something that you can integrate really easily into your peak performance habits.
I can attest to La Republica's coffee being one of the best elixirs that I've tried thus far, and I have tried several. I never, ever, ever talk about products unless I love them. If you guys are interested, we do have a discount code. It is
vulnerable, all caps 15. So vulnerable 15. Head over to larepublicasuperfoods.com and type in vulnerable 15. When you check out, you will receive a 15% discount on all of La Republica's mushroom coffee. Thanks for listening. Go grab your 15% discount. And now back to our episode. So I kind of want to switch gears, Chris, into kind of your backstory, your history, because we've gone through some of the things that you do with Unshakable Man, and your organization focused on men's total health, wellness, fulfillment, all of these things that drive your mission. But I want to hear more about how you got there. What is your history? Kind of what was your life growing up? And I know a little of that personally from just we went to high school together, but I think just for our listeners, where did you come from and how did you grow up and what really shaped you?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you so much, Jess. What really shaped me? So I grew up on Cape Cod in a bed and breakfast. My mother and father were divorced, and I didn't know it back then, but I was a very angry young man, and I went to high school about 10 miles from my house, and at the time, having a tumultuous relationship, living with my mother and with my mom, and not being able to trust in that relationship to be able to get to school, I started riding my bike to school. And it was like a 10-mile bike ride each way to school. And I think in hindsight, that what that gave me was it gave me an outlet and a place to show up and a place to be myself in my own way, and to be safe and to experience anger and frustration and sadness and all of these things that I now know were emotions, but to experience those and a place to put them. And so that being on a bike and then finding what I now know is purpose, at least for me back then, of being a triathlete and doing 40 triathlons a year, and then saying I want to go to Worlds and setting a goal to do that and to go to nationals. And I think I said I wanted to go to Worlds first, but then realized I needed to go to nationals before that. Now in hindsight, 20 years later, it's like, what an amazing, I was just talking about it today, about periodization, and something that I learned at 15 years old, of how to build an annual training plan and how to break my year into a transition, a base, a build, and a peak, and how to visualize this thing in my mind that I wanted, and then to structure that time, and then to fall into the surrender of doing it, right? Like, is this suffering, or am I going to surrender to it and accept what I'm capable of now, and find out what my values are by actually striving for something, and then developing integrity throughout that process. And I think that it just gave me so much, and I'm like, the smile on my face right now as I talk about this. What's interesting to me as I notice this is that I'm like smiling about this gift, right? And at the same time, it came from a place of pain and how those two things are like a paradox to manage, not like a problem. Like this past positive perspective on how much this gave me, racing triathlons and then racing bikes, and how that has fueled me into then when I left cycling, I went through a period of downness. I don't think I was depressed at that time. I think knowing now what depression is and having experienced a period of depression in my when I was 29, I think I was just very down and lost, having put my entire what I considered to be myself. My whole ego was based on being a cyclist and a triathlete. And then when I crashed and broke both my arms, I was really very, very lost. And then I found startups and sales, and that all of those traits that I had learned in cycling and in triathlons were really valued, and again gave me a new sense of purpose and a new sense of belonging, and a new thing to inflict myself on. And yet now where I am today, I think I even see that like a lot of that was constructed on this egocentric external self that interests me like half as much now.
Yeah, and I commend you for being vulnerable with kind of more of the family life stuff, because I think, I get this sometimes as well. Coming, growing up on Cape Cod, people assume, you're rich, you have a beautiful life, like what is there to complain about? But everyone has trauma, everyone has their specific story, and even diving a little deeper into that, and if you don't want to, that's fine, but how did that really, you were not using, but cycling was your outlet, right? Cycling was where you were able to kind of work through your pain, whether you knew it or not. What was that source of pain? You mentioned your mom, was your dad in the picture? Like where did all the pain come from?
I think I don't even, I was going to say, I think, I feel, I feel like it came from the same this place of innocence, of confusing how I could be treated that a certain way by the person that I expected to love me, right? And I think even as I say that, like I'm at where I was at that age, like you do what you do to get your needs met, right? And I think the way just my mom wasn't able to show up for me the way that a mom should be able to show up for her kids, and wasn't trustworthy, would leave me alone, neglect, would do things and say things that weren't going to happen. And I think for me as a young man, I didn't even know that wasn't okay, because I had never experienced anything else. And that led to confusion. It led to frustration and anger, and what I now call like a scary carnival ride of emotions that took 20 years and then going back to those places inside to realize that, oh, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. And I don't even know what a healthy relationship feels like. And I need to go on a journey of exploration to find out what that is. And it wasn't until really bumping into my own problems in my own life and realizing that I definitely had a moment around 25, 26 where I came back to myself and I said, I don't think I know what a healthy relationship looks like. And I need to go find out what that was. And it got harder before it got easier.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to do some noble healing right now, no matter how far you are in your journey. You know, I'm so sorry that was your experience. I'm so sorry for that. And I'm so happy that you are on this journey. So happy.
Yeah. And I think what I noticed even as I checked in on it was like talking about, like, as I express it, like there was like nervousness in me because I'm noticing that like I really understand. I really understand what was happening. I really feel like I can empathize with my mom now. And I think that is one of the things that, like, I remember discovering, like, a feeling a few years ago, maybe like 4 years ago, where I realized that, like, forgiveness is acceptance that the past happened and not feeling better about it. And in that moment, like, I forgive my mom and I have forgiven her so many times. And here, just now being kind of surprised by that question, I noticed myself being nervous about not feeling sad about it anymore. Like, I actually feel good about it. Like, I feel okay about it. I understand what happened and how and where she was, and that ability to empathize and to go back to those places inside have changed our relationship into a place where if I'm sitting as her son, that little boy inside of me, yeah, that's sad. Like, I'm like that, going back to him and what he was dealing with, and with only knowing what he knew, and how confused he was, right? But then when I come back into where I am now as the man that I am today, like, everything that I do, that I get to do, was generated from that experience. And like, just healing, and then that awareness in myself, and then to be able to sit with other men and to go to sit with them, and to drop into the places inside that hurt, and to not need to change how they feel, to just sit there with them and be like, maybe it's not okay, right? And then realizing like that's empathy, and so where we are today is really in like a beautiful place. I feel like my ability, where I have come, seeing my little brother have a baby, becoming an uncle, being around, and like having my fiance, myself, and starting a family. I feel so like proud to have like my mom in my life, and I feel like my healing has helped her. Like, she's in like a really good place, and I don't know, it's just pretty cool.
I so honor you for being vulnerable with us. And if your mom had been the mother that you maybe wanted, you wouldn't be as driven as you are. You wouldn't have gone along this journey. You wouldn't be as hungry to heal other people. You wouldn't have suffered, so you wouldn't have cared as much. And I think that is such a gift that she gave you, because instead of feeling sorry for yourself, you were able to go on this journey to kind of master this unshakable man. You know, you can go through your worst challenges and your worst problems and failures but now you know this other thing, and you've been able to kind of look back and reflect and create this beautiful relationship. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in and say that I so resonate with you when it comes to, healing that inner wounded child within us, and having to reparent ourselves because we weren't exposed to the ideal parenting scenario, and
Right.
I had to take a look at my own wounding as well with my mom, and that's why I feel like I can really connect with you on that.
Yeah.
And do a lot of acceptance. In the beginning I called it forgiveness work as well, but a lot of acceptance, and realizing just that hating my mom was so much more painful and caused so much more suffering for me than it did for her. And once I was able to let that go, it changed my relationship with her. And it's still evolving and changing as well. In fact, like recently, vulnerable share, my mom and I were having some issues. The family was having some issues. My mom has she has some addiction issues, and it's really difficult to watch somebody that you love go through that.
Yeah.
And I was really mad at her. I was really upset with her. I was just really upset with her in general. But then I said, it hurts so much to be this mad at her and to hold on to this crap, right? That the ego wants to hold on to so that I can be right and so that I can defend myself, right? So that the ego can defend itself. And once I let that go and said, I just really love my mom and I just really want to have a relationship with my mom, it just always changes everything. And it just brings it to a beautiful space, wherever that is in that moment,
Yeah. I mean, yes, I feel, I think addiction is those moments at any time I've tapped into something that is, there, I feel like the greatest opportunities to truly feel empathy are the times when we can't find a way to make things better. And I think addiction is one of those types of things where it, like, no one, if someone just said like, oh, well, try this or do that, like there is no strategy, right? Or way to help. And it just puts us into a corner of having to sit with something and accept it and really see how we can show up for ourselves and still be in relationship with this person while also getting what we need, like loving ourselves and having boundaries and going through that whole game, that whole thing, which is life, right? So I thank you for sharing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something that, if anything, has taught me over the years, just growing up, that it made me into a much more empathetic and compassionate person, and it's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I mean, from all of this, I'm reminded of I'm not sure if we talked about this before, but I just love how these things pop up. But it's like, did we talk about the fundamentals of spiritual psychology and all, like there's this one line that's like, the problems in your life are your curriculum and we each have our own. And I think one of the things in my own research that was so powerful is like, here we are like celebrating and making meaning out of this thing that happened and saying, oh, well, if this didn't happen like to you, or if this didn't happen, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing today. Well, it's like, well, you could have gone in a totally different direction and been down on myself and been in a victim place. But so this is just, how lucky am I that I got to have this, like, that I got to learn or discover that this gift of inflicting myself on sport to go through this like healing practice, right? And now I look at those types of things as like, oh, no wonder why people say business and creativity and sport are physical activities are one way of going through a spiritual practice. And so this, like, the fundamentals of spiritual psychology say that, like, the problems in our life are our curriculum and we each have our own. Well, if that emotion that I'm feeling, if my relationship with it is that this is bad, I don't want to feel this thing, I want to run away from it, I want to use substances to suppress it, I want to repress this, I don't want to express this emotion, well, I never would have been able to go back and sit with it, right? And so to find the edge of that, to go back to those places inside that hurt and to sit with them and to realize there are no bad or good emotions, there's only constructive or destructive reactions to them, and to sit and hold space and to really break down and be like, I didn't know I was that angry. Like, I really didn't, right? I thought I was this like achiever type dude who like rode his bike and did triathlons and liked winning, and like, and I didn't realize I was angry, right? I didn't, and I think that this happens to a lot of men that think they need to hold it all together, right? We see other men who aren't crying, who are tough, who look tough, who seem to have it all put together, and then we create this idea that if I just try harder, if I act more invulnerable, well, then I'll be powerful. And yet I feel open now. Like I feel like I have the ability to go to places that I've never been capable of going before, and to sit in those places with my fiance. And I don't feel like love is about romantic, isn't attraction anymore. It's not about getting my needs met. It's not about attraction. It's not about whether or not I desire you. Like, love is acceptance. Love is understanding deep inside me. And then now that I can accept myself, I can see it through myself and in my fiance and how it's changed our relationship. And then as our relationship has matured, I can see that there was a time when I was a young man and I thought that desire and love were the same thing. And they're not at all. Like, desire is the choice to be unhappy until I have what I want. I used to look at other girls when I was dating and think, oh, if I think another girl is good looking, I can't be with this other woman anymore. So I would break up with them. And it was just this, like, it was this total frivolous decision. And it's like, no, I see ice cream cones all the time. I desire them all the time, right? Like, I see other women that look attractive all the time. But it's like through this journey of deepening and going back into these places inside that hurt, it's almost like my ability to feel sadness has also been my ability to feel love. And I just think this stuff is awesome.
Yeah, I feel you. No, I hear you on all of that.
Yeah.
Let's take a deep breath.
Yeah, I just did that. I was like, this is so,
yeah.
this whole,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
This conversation is just up my alley.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to hang out with you both.
Yeah. Yeah. And you lead Unshakable Man with Mike.
Yep. Yeah, me and Mike Sagoon. We actually are turning into a men's coaching cooperative. So now that Mike and I are fully booked with clients, and we are really, like, I look at this, at the Unshakable Man, as like my own ability to, in one way, it's like a sustainable learning and development community for myself and for all of the teachers that I have in my life. And so to create more space and learning, we're looking at inviting in 4 other men's coaches. And so really just to further our own practices and to learn from each other.
I love that. And it's weird timing because Svetlana and I are starting a new collective coaching ourselves too, and really like kind of merging some of our clients and starting to do some joint coaching where, you know, if they want some services from, you know, my program, or they want services from her program, that we're going to create some sort of like a combined coaching collective. And we haven't even announced it yet. So it's a new thing that we've kind of got going on, but I love that. I think it's so important to learn from other people. If you're not growing, you're dying. And I just love what you guys are creating. And so how did you and Mike meet each other? How did you guys get connected?
I was dressed as an ice cream cone, and Mike was dressed as Pablo Escobar at a Halloween party in San Francisco.
Perfect.
When I moved to San Francisco, I was in software sales, and I moved out here with 5 days notice. And I was just telling this story this morning with one of the heads of Everyman who I'm getting to become friends with. And so Mike and I met, and then went our separate ways. And I got to meet his husband, Jerry. And we didn't maintain being friends, like we were just friends on Facebook. And then when I started in a role as learner in residence at a self-directed learning program called Uncollege. It was a guided gap year program for high school students. This was right around the time, right after I quit my job in software sales to go on this deeper connection life coaching journey. At that time, I was not okay with saying I wanted to be a life coach, but I started as learner in residence at Uncollege, and I was putting on all of these different social emotional learning workshops, and I noticed that Mike had just was at his role teaching at Kaiser, and I invited him in to talk with the students about art therapy, and he and I teamed up on a project to do a Designing Your Year workshop, and we enjoyed working together so much. About 6 months later, he invited me to come do a men's retreat with him, and I never even knew what a men's retreat was. And and it was way over my zone of proximal development. I felt so out of place being the guy hosting a men's retreat who had never been to a men's retreat, and it was awesome because it just launched me into this space. And I feel like I do not feel like this was an intentional calling. I feel like this was a much more of responding to a need in the world where that I didn't even know myself that I needed.
Sounds like you were guided. You were guided to this.
Yeah.
Well, I love all this deep stuff. I kind of want to ask some questions around your routines, because I know that you are highly athletic and have been very successful. And we've talked about kind of the ins and outs of how ego is a little bit involved in that, but there's got to be some sort of accountability as well from a personal standpoint. So, you know, what is, like, is cycling still in your life? Or maybe you can run through kind of your typical morning routine, how you start your day, what do you eat for breakfast, what really gets you set up for success?
Oh man, I love this stuff. This is, we could do a whole nother time on this. So first of all, the ego is not bad, right? Like we talk about ego a lot in terms of problems, but the ego is not bad. The ego is just it is just like, it's part of that paradox of like that inner self and that external self, right? And so I think it gets a bad rap because the ego also can be like your alter ego to allow you to break through fear or do something hard, right? Or allow you to show up through difficult times, right? And similar to these different alter egos that I was talking about with like cycling and then being a software sales guy, right? And like, but I know that I'm not just I am not all of that, right? I am not just that, right? Like I am these other things. But if I just put myself on those things, well, then that's pretty fragile, because then when you remove that, you what are you, right? And so I wanted to say that first. But in terms of my morning, my most important time in the morning is from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. when is Anna me time. So I like to go through my most important time of my day in terms of getting my stuff in order is my when I wake up in the morning and my feet touch the floor, usually between 5:30 and 6 in the morning. I like to get 8 hours of sleep no matter what, so that fluctuates depending on when I go to bed. When my feet touch the floor, I say a to-be statement. It's just, today I'm going to be blank, and then I clap both my hands over my head and give myself a big smile, and that's my celebration. So today I said, today I'm going to be productive, and this was part of being productive. And then I walk into the kitchen because I'm tired, and I turn on the hot water heater. And after the hot water heater clicks to make my coffee or my tea, I sit on the floor in the kitchen and I meditate or do nothing for 5 to 10 minutes while the tea is sitting there. It takes 4 minutes and 30 seconds for the hot water heater to go off. And then I grab my laptop, which I leave in the kitchen, and I do my writing. I like to do like 500 to 1,000 words in the morning, and that's usually what you end up seeing on Instagram. But I don't like to do my writing on my phone on Instagram, because then I get pulled into all of that stuff. And then usually by the time that's done, it's 7 a.m. and I bring coffee and tea to Anna, and we hang out and make breakfast together. I start my day at 8:15. I have 20 hours of sessions a week, and I like to time box my week into different themes. So Monday is my ready, aim, fire day. I get to just scan my week so I can show up on Tuesday through Friday and be ready to go and not be surprised. And then in terms of physical training and training stuff, I currently training for a 50K, for my first 50K running trail race. Anna and I tried to run it last year, and she got injured, and so we like to run together a lot. So every evening we run like 3 to 7 miles together after work. And then and then my other rule is I like to put work away at 6 o'clock and no phone for family time after that. And then I'll sometimes do like editing or creative work in the evening, just because I like what I do. So sometimes I like to sit on the sofa and do creative things like doodling or planning out business stuff. But all of that happens on my own. Not allowed to do that in bed. So that's my morning routine.
Yeah, and you lightly skipped over a 50K, which is like, that's awesome. What does that look like? Is that kind of, that's not a street race, right? That's kind of more of a, is it more of like a something through the woods, or what is that?
Yeah, so it's a 50K, 50-kilometer trail race. I'm not sure exactly which one I'll do. I've got like 5 other races before that, and it's been on my list to do a 50K for years, probably like 10 years, ever since I knew they existed. But really, like, I think 50K is just the outcome. I think what I'm more excited about is the training. Like I love mapping out my year and building out my base build peak phases, and then building it all out in Excel, and then checking in on it every week and seeing if how it went. I'm currently behind because I got sick. I got a cold after traveling before coronavirus, and was worried about having corona. So I was only running like 10 miles a week at that time. But yeah, it's a 50K trail race. It'll probably be in Tahoe and in September.
That sounds beautiful. Tahoe's gorgeous. What an
Yeah.
awesome place for a race. Wow.
All of these things to me are connected. I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like the physical sport being like the difference between playing a game, like playing a game, doing something because someone else wanted you to do it. To me, like the physical exertion, saying I want to go do this thing, is a physical act of getting to play out all of these other things we talked about today, right? Like, because I say I want to do something, and then I'm placing like meaning in my mind on like, if I don't do that, somehow I'll be backing down from doing it. And then I get to inflict myself on my life and kind of go through each week or each day. And through that process, find purpose, find meaning. Right. And I just think that, and just the smile on my face that we're even talking about this now in the same context, like, it's beautiful to me, right? Do you guys see the same connections?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's awesome that you get so pumped up about, you mentioned checking your Excel and like really like feeling the progress that you've made and feeling kind of how far you've come, because that's such a big part of, just like being a competitive athlete in general, like holding yourself to a higher standard. And it just got me thinking, because I know that you were in software sales as well, and you kind of got that little technology bug in you as well. If you like, is there something that you might recommend to the listeners, just like a piece of technology that's maybe changed your life, that's not super expensive, maybe something under $100 or something that you use every day or that you use in your life that you would recommend people? Because I feel the passion for tracking and accomplishing and holding yourself to this standard. So I was just kind of curious on like any technologies that you would recommend for people.
Headspace. Headspace.
Love
Go download Headspace. No, I'm an Evernote and Google Docs guy, but if I think Headspace is the first thing that I would recommend to create some empty space in your life.
So that's similar to the Calm app. Is Headspace free? Is it a free app, or what is the?
Yeah, it's free. It's a great app.
They have a free application. I know that I pay for it, so I wouldn't want to recommend it if it wasn't. There's a lot of others out there, but I think Headspace is. I love that I've gotten addicted to it, so I think Headspace is my favorite.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out because I've used Calm before, but I have not used Headspace, so definitely gonna check that out. Kind of staying on this same note of recommendations. I know that you're probably going to have a field day with this one, but are there any books that you've most gifted or that you would recommend that have changed your life?
Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel.
Perfect for COVID-19.
Perfect for COVID-19.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. And I love Esther Perel.
Yeah. My others would be Spiritual Materialism. I can't say the author's name. Is a Buddhist monk, and then Carla McLaren's The Language of Emotions. Huge, and then anything by I forgot the name of the book, but Alain de Botton's his book on relationships. I believe it's I don't want to type on my keyboard right now, but Alain de Botton's book on love. Yeah,
thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, those I've come back to all of those multiple times this year for pages that I really enjoy. So the Carla McLaren's one of my favorite things. Do we have a few more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this is this is something that really just blew me up from an emotions perspective. Was I stumbled on first reading her book, The Language of Emotions, and then going to her website. And I'm surprised this isn't more popular, but there's a blog entry on there about why love is not an emotion. and this comes back to like a lot of what I talked about with my mom. And we like, don't we think love is an emotion? Like, don't you two both think that love is an emotion?
Yes. And I've also heard an interesting perspective about this from another author a while back, and I can't recall his name right now or if it was on a podcast,
Right.
but
I mean, but in general, like, I'm not the only one, right?
yeah,
Like
I feel like I
right.
know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
But go on.
So basically, like I don't mean, we could just have a conversation about this, but love, to me, like love, when I was a young man, love was an emotion. Love was maybe an act. Maybe love was like, you showed me love by doing things for me, right? You showed me love by taking care of me. You showed me love by showing up to take me to school, right? You showed me love by accepting me when I didn't do well at something, right? Like love was just this giant catch-all term for everything, right? And I love, and what Carla likes to point out is that like love is not an emotion because it can be present in the presence of all emotions, right? And so and it always exists. We're not, it's an energy, it's a vibe, it's like a force. It's this thing that's like there, we're just not tapped into it. And that if we don't understand that, then we get caught into a back and forth with whoever we are in relationship with, even ourselves. We get caught in relationship with calling for love or wanting love. Like we're trying to give and get love as if it's a thing that we pass back and forth, but it's always there. And so then Alain de Botton says that like love, desire, needs, and attraction are different things. And desire is the choice to be unhappy until I have what I want, right? So from like the Buddhist perspective, if I desire something, desire is constructive in the sense that not good or bad, it's constructive in the sense that desiring something creates ambition, right? Like I see that ice cream cone, I want that ice cream cone, I'll go get it, right? Desiring to go to nationals. All right, that creates ambition. I want to go there, I want to do that thing, right? So it's constructive. But if I desire everything, well then I'm getting pulled everywhere and I'm always unhappy, right? So you want to be mindful of desire, but desire and love are not the same thing because as Esther Perel says, shows when you're in relationship, like, and you're close and you completely have all of someone, well, desire goes away, right? But you can still be in love in that relationship. You just don't desire each other, right? But how many people get into a partnership and after a year, the desire goes away and then they think, I can't be in love with you, right? Yeah. Which is nuts, right? Which is nuts because like when you tap into that, you're like, oh my gosh, so what is love, right? And then needs and attraction are also not the same things as love. Getting your needs met is what you do when you're unconscious and unable as a child to get your needs met while in survival, right? And so from whatever you unconsciously, while you're unaware, whatever you have to do as a child to get your needs met, just like me, is what becomes your unconscious scripting of what it means to be in relationship. So if I am under nurtured, well then later, if I'm over nurtured, I get agitated, right? If I'm under nurtured, well then I get whatever the opposite is, you create this agitation state, right? And then that becomes your push and pull of your scripting in relationship with another person. But if you think that having your needs met is being loved, well then when somebody doesn't give you what you need, you think you don't love them. That's pretty messed up. Mm-hmm. Right? And so there's that, and then attraction, right? So there's the love, desire, needs, right? And so then what love is, and this comes from Alain de Botton, is that really what love is and he and Carla, I don't think they talked, so this is why I think this is cool, is Alain de Botton says like, he comes back to the Charles Cooley's looking glass self theory, which is, I don't know who I am and you don't know who you are. I am, like, we're all deeply alone inside of our minds and our bodies, even with ourselves, right? Like, I don't know who I am and you don't know who you are. I'm going through my life figuring out who I am, and I am who I think you think I am, and you are who you think I think you are, right? Like, I am who I think my mom thinks I am. I am who I think my job thinks I am. I am who I think my high school teachers thought I was, right? And I'm creating all of this meaning. And if I never really drop into my life and challenge those stories, right? Well, then I don't have a lot of personal internal narrative or like space between that and what I think my true self is. So what is love? Love is personal understanding. Is personal understanding, something known internally to myself, but known through another person, which feels like being accepted. And then what I love about that is that he says it's accepted. And what Carla says is that the closest emotion to love is acceptance.
Mm.
Right?
Wow.
And so if I know something about myself, something I never shared with anyone else, and I go there into a men's circle and I share it with you, and you sit there and you don't judge me, you don't run away, you don't come closer to me, you just sit still and you accept this. That is the act that's tapping into love, and everyone in the room feels it, right? And then you leave that space and you go back out into the world around you and you realize all of these people that are pushing and pulling on each other, right? All of this pushing and pulling is really just calls for love. And I think if you just do it, keep tapping into that pool of peace and keep reflecting and keep looking and keep asking those problems, like, I sense a problem. Great. What is this here to teach me? How can I show up in a more empowering way? What is my intention here? What do I want? Like, if you keep washing back and forth, I really believe you get closer and closer to this pool of peace and generating, and then it affects your relationships, right? And then you've got people around you that reflect the same thing and they feel love, and you're off of that scary carnival ride, right? And then when that scary carnival ride comes in, you can feel it, you can tell, and you don't get caught into it. You just hold still and firm and strong in the face of someone not looking out for themselves, right? The same way I got to do with my mom. And now it's like, I see her getting better and I can understand her. So
Yeah.
That's the stuff I love talking about.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad we have the background on that. And I just commend you for saying, I see her. I see her, and that acceptance that you've been able to create. And I think kind of what you were just saying is that, maybe our listeners have, maybe they haven't, but for me, whenever I've gone to a retreat or even leading a retreat, when you get into a space with a small group of people and there's so much love and acceptance, there's so much of these emotions where you feel people just, letting everything drip off of their body, letting everything just like peel back, really opening up. And like you said, when you go back out into the world and maybe some of that, there's some chaos and there's some things that you have to learn how to kind of go back into that peaceful state. For a lot of people, and myself included, that takes continuing to go to those retreats, continuing to do your self-work, continuing to find that space, and continuing your, whether it's a meditation journey or whatever it is that lights you up inside, because it could be different for everyone. You've got to find a way to get back to that peace. But I think, retreats and things of that nature, things along those path, that path really helps for me, especially to kind of get back in that space.
I look at the retreat from a physical perspective, like your training camp, right? It's like going to your endurance training camp and really rocking your world. And then But that's where I think the men's groups for me and for the men that I work with and for every man, like having that connection with a group of 8 other individuals every week for an entire year, like it has changed my life. Like I would not be where I am today in terms of my business, in terms of my relationship, in terms of my relationship with my business partner and best friend, my mom, like my little brother, myself, like showing up every Wednesday for 3 hours, right? And dropping in and doing this work every week. There's a sensation, there's something that's come up, right? And I think that that's one of the reasons why this work for men and healing this relationship we have with masculinity and manhood. I mean, we didn't even talk about like what's going on with the challenges of manhood and masculinity, but it just gives me hope for society to have guys dropping in together and softening and opening and like going back out into the world and hanging out with their partners and passing this type of vibe on, really passing on love.
Yeah. And we could talk for 3 more hours on all of this. And maybe we'll do another session on masculinity if we get a chance. But respecting your time and I'm smiling because I just feel so grateful that we've all just been able to get connected. And Chris, it's such a crazy journey. I know we weren't in the same, grade, or we're not the same age, but just going from high school, growing up on Cape Cod, and then now here we are. And it's such a cool experience to introduce you to Svetlana, to really hear more of your journey. And I'm just so grateful. And thank you for coming on. And we want you to be able to kind of shout out where people can find you, where you're most active on social media, your website, any events that you have coming up. Where can people learn more about you?
Oh, thank you so much, Jess. Thank you so much, Svetlana. This was just the smile on my face. I'm so filled with joy right now in my chest and face. You guys can find me at unshakableman.me. It's me and Mike Sagoon right now, but we are going to be inviting in more men's coaches into the roster, and we're launching a men's emotional awareness program. It's coming up. This is actually my first time talking about it out loud. Coming up first week in April. It brings together breathwork every Sunday, a lesson on one of the Unshakable Man pillars with therapist Mikey Brackett, and then an open men's group and drop-in session every Thursday. And it's just going to be an open, never-ending men's emotional awareness training program that continues on. So if you're interested, I would love for you to reach out. Well, why don't we do our checkout? Awesome. I'll go first just to prime us. I'm Chris and I'm checking out. Physically on my body, I notice my hands aren't sweaty anymore. My toes are cold and cramped on the chair underneath me. I can taste the black tea in my mouth. Emotionally, I feel open, safe, connected, and thankful. I'm Chris and I'm checking out.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Jessica and I'm checking out. Physically on my body, I noticed that my shoulders have dropped. My hands went to my knees, and I've just noticed the breath in and out of my nose has become slower throughout our conversation. And emotionally, I came into the conversation feeling a little rushed, and now I feel vulnerable and I feel open and grateful and alive. I'm definitely curious for more, and I'm checking out.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Svetlana and I'm checking out. Physically, I feel cooler in my palms and toes. I feel more fluid in my back. And I feel more open overall. Emotionally, I feel more connected, honest, and I feel really grateful too. I feel really, really grateful and lighter. I'm Svetlana and I'm checking out.
Oh, thank you. This was wonderful, ladies. Thank you so much for having me.
We're just so grateful to have had you on. Thanks so much, Chris. Thank you for listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. For more information on today's speaker, please visit us at boldandvulnerablepodcast.com.
And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading the love by being bold and vulnerable. Thank you. We love you.